Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trilokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidyadranam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we are in the section still on ending vasanas. This whole section starts, I think, with 267. Even after realization of the truth, there exists a strong impression that one is the doer and the enjoyer, which is the cause for rebirth, meaning I re-identify. This needs to be conscientiously rooted out. Work, thought by thought, attachment by attachment, steady and continuous identification with the self. The annihilation of the vasanas, here and now, is considered liberation by the wise. So Shankara has then proceeded into this section on how do we get rid of asana. And just to give a little context, so when the mind is under enormous vasana pressure, Krishna says every person is impelled into activity helplessly by the force of their nature. What can restraint do? We've all had that experience. I want such and such and so and so. And I can't help myself. I want it. I'm going to go do it. And try to restrain it out of willpower, this doesn't work. Krishna will then prescribe 2 yogas for us: Bhakti Yoga and Karma Yoga. What's Bhakti Yoga? Intense devotional practices. Pray. I was watching YouTube on Mother Teresa of Calcutta. Says, how do you feel close to Jesus? She says, I pray. What if I don't feel it? Just keep praying. I don't know how to pray. She says, I'll teach you. Prayer itself will teach you how to pray. Keep turning our will and our lives over to the care of God. Surrender to God. Give it all to God. Love God with your heart and soul and mind and strength. However you come to God, doesn't matter. Krishna says, in whatever way people approach me, so am I to them. It can be Krishna, it can be Shiva, it can be Hanuman, it can be Jesus, it can be Allah, it can be the great unknown, the force, the cosmic force, the intelligence of the universe. It doesn't care what name you use. The second one is karma yoga. Go ahead, act according to your vasanas. But we do it in an intelligent way. We act according to our vasanas in the yajna spirit, making it all a sacrifice. We do it all for God, renouncing my attachment to the fruits of action and my identification with the sense of agency. This reduces the vasana pressure. Continue our scripture study. Continue satsang. Tripura Rahasyam asks the question, what is the root cause of liberation? The answer given in that text is sadhu sangha, association with the wise. When our vasana pressure has lessened to some degree, then we're ready to take on the practices that Shankara is prescribing. Any thoughts on this? You find yourself impelled into activity, needing to satisfy desires, no blame. Go ahead, knock yourself out. See what the world has to give you. We finally grasp the fundamental impermanence and limitation of the world. Then the mind turns in. Dealing with a fellow, when I first met him, he was a pizza driver. A couple of years ago, he finished his doctorate at USF. He's in education, now he's working in politics, he's a union rep and stuff like that. But whatever it is, it doesn't satisfy him. His mind still keeps thinking, all right, the next mountain, maybe that's what's going to do it. No, it doesn't make it different. It doesn't make it better. You may get an initial rush. What is going on? Who's had this experience in life? Life is just life. The circumstances, they're changed from this to that. So how do we gain some real freedom? That's what moksha means. Here, Shankara is talking about annihilating the vasanas. Review. A vasana has two powers. We infer the existence of a vasana by its effects. First power is veiling power, non-apprehension of my essential nature. Second power, vikshepa shakti, projecting power. I think I'm a person. I have an egoistic goal, and I have to make efforts toward that in order to be okay, in order to be happy. So what we need to do is see by the effects. Notice the Vikshepa Shakti. If I feel like a person, I'm a dumbass. If I'm believing that something out there in the world is going to fix it, Buddha, fool, stop it. Do it for mine. Introvert the attentive faculty. Notice who you are. Everything goes. Last week we talked about, Chandra says, that you're proud of them. Your karma, take care of the body. Whatever is your particular lot in life now, just go ahead, fulfill your duty. And if you're supposed to be in someplace different, it'll become clear. All right, any questions on the teaching so far? All right, do you have the verse for us?
Yeah, 282.
Is that correct, Mark? 282?
Yes, that's correct.
Help us out. Santosh is chanting this evening.
Okay. Anadana visargabhyam ishanasti kriya mune tadeka nishtya nityam swadhyasa panayam kuru. Since he has no idea of eating or evacuating, the sage has no relationship with action. Therefore, through continuous involvement in the contemplation of Brahman, deny entirely all your superimpositions.
So here, eating and evacuating is metaphor. Doesn't mean she poops her panties. It means eating is whatever I need to have come to me, it'll come. Evacuating whatever I need to get rid of, it will leave. Nobody gets up in the morning and says, I'm going to accomplish something great. I'm going to sit on the toilet. No idea. But it's with everything. Cast off this identification with the body. And practice this introversion of the mind into the sound. Now, may I talk a little bit about our discussion yesterday?
Sure.
Okay, so Wendy and I are going through Mandukya Upanishad with the Gaudapada Karika. We're in the third chapter. And Gaudapada says, now you must renounce the bliss of samadhi. What does he mean by that? Well, there are a couple meanings. You can be a Raja Yogi and go whack yourself into some wackadoodle mind state where you feel euphoric. That we have to let go. That's not what we're talking about. But here in class or in your own meditation, hopefully you're beginning to get these moments. The mind just letting go of the world. Feeling what I call the thunder of the silence. Well, isn't that a mind state, Jim? Yeah. But it's a mind state that removes our ignorance and removes our addictions to the world. Two things here. The mind will return to the experience that's given it the greatest joy. Thank God The mind reveling in the self is the greatest of all joys. Those of you who can come into that, Swamiji used to say, meet me there. He was so empty. Just sit down at his feet and just tune up to him. God. Jai. It's a trick. In the beginning, I thought it was Swamiji, and then after a while, I learned, oh, that's the self. That's the mind coming home to the self. Now, Swami Tejo Mayananda used to say, you cannot renounce something you haven't got. I got up this morning and I renounced being president of the United States. Nonsense. I was never going to be president. I'm not president. So get established in samadhi. And this Atmaramana. Own it. Own your own ananda. And yes, it's a mind state. And at times the mind will get involved in vyavahara activities of the world, and it's no big deal. You know who you are. And that tasting is always this Brahmananda rasa, the juice of the bliss. Why is this important? This is what takes the mind out of work. Beginning class, I use this example. When you were young, did you have a little tricycle? Yes. When you got older, did your parents get you a two-wheeled bike? Oh, yes. What happened to your desire for the tricycle after you got the bike? Forgot. There in the garage. Until you got the motorcycle. So the mind will easily leave the world when we develop the capacity for Atmaramana, to revel in the self. Then you can give that up. Meaning, it's always there when you want it. But if the mind needs to be engaged in the world, so what? Not a big deal. This making sense? Mm-hmm. But if a person has not the capacity to revel in the self, giving up the world will be almost impossible. The mind will return to the experience that's given it the greatest joy. Drugs, sex, and rock and roll is your greatest joy. You may think you want God, but that's not where your mind's going to go. Now, the mind prefers the familiar. It frequently will prefer the familiar to the good. This is why, what did you look at? I couldn't tell you. I just scrolled for the past 40 minutes. Who's had that experience? Familiar. So we need to make reveling in the self familiar. You need to take time. Oh. All right, next verse.
I just have a comment
Yes.
on that.
Question?
It seems as though our default state is ignorance, and it's kind of curious why that would be. Why wouldn't it just be designed in a way where our default state is that reveling instead of starting at ignorance?
Well, that question, the answer to it is way above my pay grade. You'll have to ask the Lord about that. I do not know. But I don't know why light travels at 186,000 miles per second either. Why not 187? Lots of things. I just don't know why. So why is a question that the human mind looks for, goes causation hunting. But if we go back to Shankara's 7 questions, anybody remember the 7 questions? What is bondage? How has it come about? How does it continue to exist? How do I get out of it completely? What is the not self? Who is the real self? What is the process of discrimination between the two? Notice why is not one of those questions. And as yet, there are scriptures that attribute anthropomorphic motivations to the infinite, and they disagree. And they're like saying, Mommy, where do children come from? The stork brings them, dear, eat your porridge. It's one of those kinds of things. I don't know if this is useful, Santosh. It's a mystery.
Yeah.
It's a mystery. All right, next verse.
Tattvamasya divakyota brahmatmaikatva brahmanyat matpadadhyaya swadhyasapanayam kuru. By means of the realized knowledge of the identity of Brahman and Atman, arising from such great maxims of the Vedas as that thou art, deny entirely your superimpositions in order to strengthen your identification with Brahman.
So the scriptures are a pramana, a means of knowledge. So they suggest a way of thinking. Vedanta is a non-intellectual path for intellectuals. It's designed for people who think a lot, who ask questions like why. So it gives us a way of thinking that gets us out of our thinking. We're not to be caught up in ignorance. I just accept it all on faith. No. Blind faith is stupid faith, and it will fail us in a crisis. But there's a state not of ignorance, but of ignorance, of unknowing. I'm not the body, I'm not the prana, I'm not the mind, I'm not any personal sense of self. I'm not the ignorance of deep sleep. No personal sense of self is real. I can't think a real thought. Only I is real. Everything else is real. I am. This is a kind of thinking takes us beyond the mind. That's the power of the scriptures. All right, next verse.
Aham bhavasya dehesmin nishesa vilayavade savadhanena yuktatma svatyasa kuru. Till the identification with the body is completely rooted out, with vigilance and concentration, deny entirely all your superimpositions.
Yes. So the bija vasana, the seed attached, is deha vasana. This deeply rooted conviction that I am the body. We tend to get all involved in subtle psychology, and I'm seeing this particular issue and that particular thing like that. And those things are valuable and important to see. But the root of it all is identification with the body. Do not get caught up in flesh hating. What they call in the West, mortification of the flesh. This is a big deal in some old-timey branches of the Catholic Church. What was the book? Was it Angels and Demons?
Yeah, where
what
he
was
had
the, it's called Acilia.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
the guy from Opus Dei.
yeah.
And he had this thing that he put around his leg with spikes on it. This is somehow going to get him to not be a horn dog.
Yeah.
Didn't work.
This is a big thing in India where
It
people,
is.
they stab themselves
Oh, right.
through their
yeah.
tongue, through their back, and walk on the
Yes,
street.
yes. Sleep on nails,
Yeah.
stay up all night.
To like,
As devotion.
oh,
Well, and somehow it's frankly, the ego gets identified with, look what a great ascetic I am. You know, I'm somehow superior to other people because I can do this. And you know, the Buddha talked about this because he went through this phase of denial of the flesh and punishing the flesh.
right, he wasn't eating.
Oh
Yeah.
And it didn't work. So my suggestion is take the advice of the Buddha, middle path. Don't eat too much, don't eat too little. Don't sleep too much, don't sleep too little. But give up preoccupation with the body. Do you spend 45 minutes in front of the mirror before you get out of the house in the morning? No. Well, some people do. You know, do you know, when the going gets tough, the tough go shopping. You have to have the latest clothes, the latest shoes. You know, I got to have the fancy iWatch, all this kind of stuff, somehow to be attractive to others. Here Shankar is saying is, you know, you can go down that road. He says, why embrace a rotting corpse thinking it's a beautiful bride? See the body as a car, as a vehicle to conduct your business in the world. Fundamentally, the body is an instrument for realization of the self. But you're not going to do it through hot tubs and massages. But if you're a person who's ever had to deal with chronic pain or illness, who's had to deal with that? Boy, is meditation difficult in the beginning if you're sick. Health is the greatest wealth. We don't realize its value until we lose it. And it's the great hubris of the young. Gosh, I'm gonna feel great all the time, you know? Oh, it passes. I was watching a YouTube video of an old interview of King Charles when he was still Prince of Wales. And we're talking about the Queen and how difficult it was for her to do her duties and get around at 95. And he said, I have a hard enough time at 73. Just imagining what she had to do. It gets harder and harder. Good news, if you have developed this capacity for reveling in the sound, you don't have to have a nice body. You don't have to look good. Doesn't cost anything. It's always available. More we let go of the world, the deeper and deeper it gets. Now, I talked about this, it was either last week or the week before. When we started the class, I said, I can almost guarantee that if you do everything that Shankara suggests in this text, I can almost guarantee self-realization. Unfortunately, many of us think Jim said, if I read everything Shankara wrote, and we're able to track, this is what he's saying, this is my experience, this is what I'm doing. And we hit a point where scripture starts to take off. I find that I'm not yet. Okay. At least you will know what's there. Later time in your life, come back to this text. Just hearing it, it'll be something deep in your soul. So this deep introversion of the mind, for some it's incredibly difficult. For others it comes very easily. What's the difference, Karma? So, all right, next verse.
प्रतीतिर्जीव जगतो स्वप्नवद्भाति यावता तावन्निरन्तरं विद्वान् स्वाध्यासापनयं कुरु. O learned one, as long as even a dreamlike perception of the world of objects and of the experiencing ego, jiva, persists, continuously strive to deny entirely all your superimpositions.
So again, it doesn't mean we're in some state where the world is not perceived. My problem is not the perception of the world. My problem is I think it's real and it exists. Way back in the qualifications of a fit student, first one, Brahma Satyam Jagan Nityeti Rupa Vinishchayaha Soyam Nitya Anitya Vastu Vivekachudamani. Brahman alone is real. Phenomenal world is mithya, illusory. seen but not real. The firm conviction of that in the intellect is known as the discrimination between the real and the unreal. Nitya, anitya, viveka. There's a famous story in Yoga Vasishta about this fellow who's searching for this wish-fulfilling gem, Vichindamani. He comes across it, but not realizing what it is, he casts it aside, keeps digging around, and he finds worthless pieces of colored glass. And he's all happy because he thinks he's found precious jewels. So also you and I, we have these moments when all the strivings of the world just disappear for us. Personal sense of self is just gone. Then I go home. I don't have enough money, and so said something mean to me, and oh, I don't know what's going on with politics. Worthless pieces of glass, trinkets and baubles like that. You discarded the wish-fulfilling gem. Gita, chapter 2, verse 54, Arjuna says, Krishna, what are the signs of the realized person, the person of steady wisdom? How do they walk? How do they talk? How do they sit? Krishna says, when a person casts off all the cravings of the mind and is satisfied in the self, by the self, then they're said to be a person of steady wisdom. So the person of steady wisdom sees the unreality of the phenomenal world. No personal sense of self is real. The objects appear like a hologram. What's there is consciousness alone. Take it easy. Don't worry. Next verse,
Can I add something?
please.
In the commentary, Swamiji says there's two interpretations for that verse, and one of them is that the school of commentators emphasize that till the Jiva and Jagat distinctions, the subject-object relationship appears even as a dream. The practice of self-withdrawal has to be continued, and it only stops when everything around, including the seeker's individuality, appears dreamlike or as a vision in a dream. So I had a friend share to me an experience that they had that was like that. They were talking to a therapist, and they were telling the therapist that they were feeling as though she was in a dream. And they are labeling, which is something like this that he describes here, but Western psychology labels that as dissociation or depersonalization and brings the person back into personhood.
Depends on what was happening. If people pop out of the body and disassociate because of a trauma, that's a different state. than when I see the fundamental unreality. I'd have to talk with the person.
Okay. Okay.
But also, the vast majority of Western psychotherapists don't yet know about this realm beyond the mind. Is that helpful?
Yeah, yeah. It's just that we go to these people or psychologists and psychiatrists, but I feel like it's not really solving the real issue there.
It does not. Remember, Freud was the first to really discover that we had an unconscious, a subconscious. And that's mid to late 19th century. That's 150 years ago. This was written 1,300 years ago. The yogis have known these things for thousands of years. They've systematized the science of spiritual experience. The West is way, way behind. Now, we had better plows than they did. But what's really important?
Right.
Now, there are psychotherapists who are steeped in this work. I can tell you two. Carol Whitfield is a psychologist, taught Sanskrit at CIIS, a long-time disciple of Swami Dayananda. I've met her, Radha. She was a deep woman. She made her living as a psychologist. My dear friend Vilasini Balakrishna, deep Vedanta, was trained as a psychotherapist. For many years, that was her practice. But these people are rare. My sister-in-law, Sally, is a MSW. What do you call those people? Social workers.
Yeah.
She works a lot with veterans, war fighters. And she's now begun to study Tibetan Buddhism. So they're there. They're there. But the vast majority are not. But in India, you can go to a guru who says your problem is what's in your astrology chart and go do this mantra.
Right. There's that side.
Pardon me?
There's that side of it too.
Yes. So we are very lucky that we have found this deep, deep truth that's a gem in the bezel of Hinduism. But believe me, all religions have their share of dogma and prejudice, even in the Chinmaya mission. All right. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
All right, next verse.
Nidraya lokavattaya shabdaderaphi vismritehi vachinnavasaram tattva chintayatmanamatmani. Without giving even the slightest chance to forget the Atman because of sleep or unawareness, matters of the world or sense objects reflect steadily upon the self and the mind.
Yes. So this has to be what my intention is all the time, all day long. So in the beginning, we may take up the spiritual life so that my worldly life can be more palatable. I jokingly say, oh yeah, I study Vedanta after Pilates and before my aromatherapy, you know. But at some point, everything turns on its head. So I'm at a restaurant Tuesday night, getting ready for a show with my relatives. And the kitchen forgot us, I'm pretty sure. We waited a half an hour for our food to come. We had to be at the theater. They weren't going to let us in and see us. There's no intermission or anything. There's an opportunity for yoga. Let it go. Let it go. It's going to be okay. Doesn't mean we don't take action. Doesn't mean I don't flag down the waiter and say, would you check on our food? I go out to catch the bus, number 12. And just as I'm getting ready to cross the street, there it goes. You guys take buses?
Take part. Yeah, we take part too.
Yeah. Opportunity to practice patience. Everything then becomes useful. Someone at work criticize you, and you feel the sting. Ooh, that's my mood. Let it go. Everything in life becomes useful. The foolish person plays whack-a-mole with the world. I try to change other people, manipulate circumstances, fix stuff, bludgeon the world into behaving. The yogi understands it's my own karma that's drawing every situation without exception. And the lesson is always the same. Let go and keep my heart open. So simple in the end. Then nothing in life is wasted. It's all yoga in the end. Let go, let go, let go. Remember who you are. Remember who you are. Stay empty. Any thoughts on the practice? Next verse.
Mata pitror malo bhutam malamam samayam babuhu Tyaktva excuse me Tyaktva chandala vaduram brahmibhuya kriti bhava. Shunning to a safe distance like an outcast, this body which has come from the impurities of the parents, and which itself is constituted of flesh and its impurities, assert your divine Brahmika nature and realize the fulfillment of your life.
Now, I think it's interesting as Shankara is trying to teach the highest truth. He has his own cultural context and historical perspective. Everybody knows Chandalas are to be shunned. Oops, we have racism and classism here. But we don't reject Shankara because he had his blind spots. Did that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So what is he comparing here?
Outcast, Dalits. You want to shun the body as if it were an outcast. A Brahmin is never supposed to touch an outcast. It soils you ritually. You got to do all sorts of stuff. We don't think that way anymore. We don't think that way. Some people do.
But how can a person of this realization say something like that?
Good question, because he has his own historical context. I compare it to this. All these people I know who are so into green energy in the earth and they compost and stuff like that, And then I see them drinking crystal geyser water out of a plastic bottle. Any of you drinking out of a plastic bottle right now? Do you?
Sometimes.
It is a major polluter for the ocean. It kills people. It all gets into the sewer system. It gets into little small pieces of plastic. There are huge gyres of plastic in the oceans from plastic bottles, plastic rings around six packs and stuff. Even if you're environmentally conscious, doesn't mean you're not contributing to the death of seabirds and whales and stuff like that. So Swamiji used to say, don't get involved with my personality. Because if you start to get involved with the personality of the teacher, you will be disappointed. Because the personality of the teacher is a finite thing. Probably disappoint you. You cannot see who I am, Swamiji used to say, then just see me as a mouthpiece for the scriptures. So that's the suggestion I would give you. Is that useful?
Mm-hmm.
And students get involved in this all the time. There are stories about people coming to Nisargadatta Maharaj, being all upset because he smoked. Well, how can you sit on top of a tiger skin? Why should I not? I didn't kill him. We get ideas of purity. But my point here is every teacher, every writer writes in their historical and cultural perspective. There's no absolute freedom from it. Now, there is a very famous hymn, can't remember the name of it right now, I'm having a senior moment, where Shankara meets an outcast on the road and says, get out of my way, I'm a Brahmin. And the outcast says, I am everywhere, where am I to go? And then this sings this, there's this dialogue in this song, and then Shankara realizes that it's Lord Shiva in the guise of the outcast. Beautiful, beautiful hymn. You know, he had his breakthroughs. All right. Next, but my point is, just because it's in the scripture does not mean we get to reinforce our prejudices using scripture as an authority. Did that make sense? We know better now. Going on.
Kathakasham mahakasha ivatmanam paratmani vilapya kanda bhavena tushnim bhava sadamune. Merging the infinite ego in the supreme self, like the
Moving
pots.
the finite ego, I think he says.
No, maybe it's a typo, but it says infinite.
All right. Read what he has.
Merging the infinite ego in the supreme self, like the pot space in the infinite space. By meditating on their identity, be forever peaceful, O sage.
Okay. I'm not sure about that, but the idea here, it's a very classic idea. So it seems like I am inside my body. Myself is in here, yourself is over there. That is like the space in the glass versus the space in the room. Or if I had two glasses, glass space here, glass space there. oh my God, did we change selves? No. There's no real division. The self is vijnana gana, a homogeneous mass of consciousness that's everywhere. How do I get rid of what appears to be limitation of my ego? The best example I've come up with is if you take your hands and you make a tube, close one eye and look through the tube, then your peripheral vision is occluded, but there's nothing that's changed with your eyeball. Now, if you remove the limiting adjuncts, your hands, your eyeball didn't change at all, but your vision now is wide and vast. So when the self peeps through the intellect, the mind, the senses of the body, it seems to be limited. Withdraw my attention from those limiting adjuncts, and I see the self as Chidakarsh. How do I do that? See if you can tune up the mind. Look behind your eyes. Notice the noticer. Just listen to the traffic for a moment. Then who hears what hears? See all of a sudden that limited person gone. You can bring it back. Cannot be the self if it comes and goes because of the activity of the mind. Listen carefully. Even if I make a glass, I haven't really limited space. So if I'm functioning in the world, what we call vyavahara, doing transactions. I went up to Piedmont Avenue today on the bus. I came home. I made some lunch. I watched TV. Well, did the self do all that? No, it was the equipment. Once you get what you are, then the apparent limitations of the adjuncts don't really limit. They're like a dream. Next one.
स्वप्रकाशमधिष्ठानं स्वयं भूय सदात्मना ब्रह्मानन्दमपि पिण्डाण्डं त्यज्यतां मलभाण्डवात्. Yourself becoming the self-luminous Brahman, the sole substratum of all things, reject the macrocosm and microcosm like two unclean parcels.
Yes. So this whole idea of the macrocosm and the microcosm, this is the classic, what we call exegesis, the understanding of a piece of scripture, of Tattvamasi. Microcosm, me, the individual. Macrocosm, God in the universe. You have a gross body, the physical body. God has a gross body, the Jagat, the creation. You have a subtle body of thoughts and feelings. The infinite has a subtle body, the total mind, Hiranyagarbha. You have a causal body, your bundle of asanas. The infinite has a causal body. We call it Prajapati, the creator. We call it Ishvara, the Lord. But at the core of my being is witnessing consciousness. And the ground of being of the whole creation is consciousness. I am Atma, Brahma. This self that I am is Brahman. They are the same. What's the practice? Let go of my identification with the body, mind, intellect, and the ego sense. And in terms of this phenomenal world, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, names and forms appear like a dream. Take it easy. Over and over and over. Let go. Next verse.
Meister Eckhart said that as well. The ground of God is the ground of my being.
It's because he was a man of knowledge.
Chidatmani sadanande deharura maham diyam nivesha lingamutsrijya kevalo bhava sarvada. Shifting your identification, which is now fixed in the body, to the Atman, which is existence, knowledge, bliss. Rejecting the subtle body, may you become ever the pure self alone.
Yes. So we not only need to reject our identification with the physical body, but the subtle body as well. Give up the stuff we were talking about earlier about psychology.
Mhm.
What is it that's concerned with the traumas of my family of origin? What is it that wants to know about my astrological background or particular cultural traits? So we're Tamilian, we always do it this way, or we're Irish, we always do it that way. All of those things are qualities of the subtle body. Let them all go. I'm not my thoughts, I'm not my feelings. I have no thoughts and feelings of my own. It's just mine. It doesn't belong to anybody. It's not real. We do this not only in our meditation seat, but through the whole day. We'll never get anything done. You'd be surprised. Next verse.
Yatraisha jagadhabaso tarpanantapuram yatha tad brahma miti jnatva kritakrityo bhavishyasi. That in which there is the illusion of the universe, just as the city in the mirror, that Brahman you are. Knowing this, you will experience the fulfillment of your life.
So this is another classic metaphor, the pratibimba. Bimba is a mirror, pratibimba is a reflection in a mirror. So I always think if I were to go all the way up to the top of Twin Peaks and face west and hold up a hand mirror, I could see the whole downtown of San Francisco. There's a city in the mirror. But can I reach in and grab a cable car? So also, this phenomenal world appears like the city in a mirror, like a castle in the clouds. seen but not real. So what? Take it easy. Don't sweat the small stuff. It's like when you go to the movies. I watched Harry Potter last night again. It's a great movie. It's so much fun. Watching them play Quidditch. But was Harry in any real trouble of falling off of his broom? No, of course not. It's a movie. Were they in any real danger from the mountain troll?
Leela.
Yeah. Seen, but not real. Next one.
This is the last verse of this chapter.
And I think we'll quit there.
Yat satyabhutam nijarupamadyam chitadvayanandamarupamakryam tadetyamityavapurutsrajeta shailushavadveshamutpatmanatmanah. Attaining that which is intrinsically one's essence, which is knowledge absolute and bliss, non-dual, which is beyond all forms and activities. One should cease identifying with the false body, like the actor who relinquishes his dress and makeup.
So Leela, word means play, has two meanings in Sanskrit. Play, like let's go outside and play baseball. But it can also mean I went to Berkeley Repertory Theater on Tuesday and saw a play. Here, the idea is see your body, mind, intellect, your ego sense with all its stupid little drives and prejudices and stuff. It's just the role that you play in life. Now listen carefully. It isn't going to be any different if you play a leading role. Unlike the movies where the stars get a bigger check, this life, equal pay. And everyone has their role. This is called our prarabdha karma, just working out the stuff of this life. So here Shankara says, give up thinking that being a different kind of person is going to make it better. Now listen very carefully. This also means don't think, oh, I can't wait to be a realized person. Oh, then I'll glow and everybody will love me. They'll touch my feet and give me money. That's just another shtick. It's another job. The Lord wants you to be some kind of a teacher. That will make itself clear. It's much easier to be the Lord than to be a guru. If that makes sense, be Brahman.
Because when you're Brahman, whatever is supposed to happen will happen.
Well, it's going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
But if I think I'm in the wrong job, I'm in the wrong play, all you're going to do is suffer. Question out there in Zoom land?
Yeah, Jim, this is Atik. Can you remind us, you said there was 3 things the mind tries to do. It wants something it doesn't have. It wants to change something it already has. And what was the third one? It wants to get rid of something.
I have what I want, but I'm frightened that I'm going to lose what I have.
I have a. Okay. Thank you.
Raga, Vesha, Bhaya. All right, we'll end here tonight. Great job chanting, by the way.
Beautiful.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Om